All right, guys, it is our great pleasure and honor to introduce the next guest. He is a former K1 Grand Prix winner, a Pride legend, and one of the most exciting and universally loved fighters on the UFC roster. He is fighting Fabricio Werdum, UFC 180, in less than 2 weeks. He's none other than Mark, the Super Samoan Hunt. Mark, welcome to Submission Radio. How are you?
Hey guys, great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Mark. Now, look, the last couple of weeks must have been an absolute whirlwind. Tell us, after fighting Roy in Japan, were you planning on fighting again this year?
Well, no, I was trying to get on the Sydney card, but I realized I wasn't going to get no call up for that. So I was planning on thinking like next year, early sometime next year. I was looking at coming back, and I think that's when I thought they were going to call me up. But yeah. Guess not, right?
Well, obviously the big news for the last couple of weeks has been you are now fighting, not only at UFC Mexico, you've replaced Cain Velasquez, but you're going to be fighting for the UFC heavyweight interim title. What was your initial reaction when you got that call?
Oh, the reaction was probably yes before I even agreed to it. But, it was one of those things, it was a double-edged sword. I didn't train till after that fight, and but I already said yes before I even, actually said yes to Dana, but so it was quite good. It was a good surprise.
Now, Mark, you mentioned recently that you believe that you were the best fighter in the world and that you do want to challenge for the title. Now, that wish seems to have come a lot quicker than expected. How do you feel now that you will be fighting for the UFC interim heavyweight title?
Can you say the question again?
Yeah, sure.
How do I feel about that?
Yeah, how do you feel now that you've gone from a guy that obviously started, we remember watching you at UFC 127 against Chris Tuckshur, you moving up the ranks, and just recently you said that you do want to fight for the heavyweight title, and now in just such a quick turnaround, you have the chance to fight for the UFC interim heavyweight title. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's no surprise to me. Like I said before, I'm always felt like I was the best fighter on the planet, and this is just another example of what I'm saying is right. This is for the number one spot to fight the champ. I mean, I do feel Fabricio Werdum would be upset about it, and I would be upset about it too if I had my shot at the world champ and I had to step back to fight someone else. It's my opportunity to go. So, but hey, man, I'm taking my opportunity, and that's it. That's all I'm interested in doing.
Absolutely. Now, I guess one of the hurdles that you have to overcome getting ready for this fight is that you don't have much time to prepare for it. Tell us, how's training going over in Mexico? Who are you working with right now preparing for the fight? And what's the biggest challenge that you think you'll face in training and in preparation for this fight?
Well, right now I'm just fighting with all the trolls on Facebook, and the thing about this is I didn't get much time for this. It was like 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. So losing 21 kilos in 3.5 weeks is not an easy task, and also coming over to the other side of the world, it's like from the time, because I'm living in Sydney, so when my family's going to sleep, I'm getting up. So it's a totally different side of the world, and when you have your brain, you teach your brain how to do certain things. You teach yourself, it's time to get up. You teach yourself it's time for breakfast. It's time for training. It's all that sort of jazz. So you got to teach these things to your mind. And then when you get to the other side of the world, it's the total opposite. So you've got to change that as well. And not only have to deal with that, it's the climate over here. It's 3,000 feet up in the air, and it's not sea level, so it's a different level. And it's pretty polluted over here in Mexico City. So, training outdoors is not a good thing. We were training outdoors the other day, and, my throat was getting sore, and my nose was getting sore even worse. So the harder I worked up, the more sore I got because of the pollution. So, I had to go indoors, back into the air conditioning. It's something you got to, work towards. I had a couple of weeks in Denver and fought against Tadana and Ben Rothwell.
Yep.
If I didn't get there 2 weeks, I would have lost the fight. So, it was my first time at altitude. I never, and Denver's 5,000 feet up. It's not an easy feeling to fight at altitude because you never get your second wind. You need to spend like 2 months over there. So, people saw that. I thought these guys are unfit, but then I realized anything at altitude is just hard work unless you've been there, a couple of months or so. So 3 weeks is not enough time. But, you know, I'm taking my opportunity, you know, with both hands. I want to run with it. So we'll see how we go.
And I was going to ask, you know, in your last fight against Roy Nelson, you mentioned afterwards that you trained very hard and you were very fit. You know, do you think some of that fitness may carry over into this fight, given the short turnaround?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, you know, fitness goes about 24 hours if you don't keep training, working at it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, I'm feeling pretty good right now. You know, I'm feeling really good. I'm right on target with weight. I'm looking forward to fighting, and thinking about.
I was going to say, Mark, speaking of weight, you know, you were talking to some of the local journalists here, one being Nick Walshaw coming out of Sydney himself, and you told him that you were on weight, you're on a good weight. Tell us right now, what is the weight situation? What weight are you on now? And you're very confident, aren't you, that you'll be making weight for this one?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've got no excuse about not making weight 3 weeks, even 21 kilos. So, you know, I did talk to Dana about, you know, a few things, but, you know, if you can't make weight, don't take the fight, which is true. You know, I got a lot of weight on me. I can lose, so, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm making weight, so there's no problem.
And I'm just curious because in your last fight against Roy Nelson, you know, there was a lot of stories in the media about how there was quite a bit of weight to cut. You know, I think down to the last couple of days. But obviously, for a bigger guy, sometimes, you know, cutting a lot of weight is just normal. Was it an out of ordinary circumstance the last time, or was that just the usual amount that you cut before a fight?
Well, that would have been my third weight cut ever. So I'm just starting to get used to how this all works, you know what I mean? You know, unlike the smaller guys that have to fight to make weight, you know, those guys have hardly got a bit of fat on them. You know, I'm a big guy, got a lot of fat on me, so it's easy for me to lose. It's either water or something else, but third, fourth cut in my whole career ever, so I'm getting used to this thing, so I know how far I'm out and what I can cut, and, you know, so, you know, I wasn't, I think the media exaggerates a bit about certain things, so...
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about Fabricio Werdum. You know, he's a very talented fighter, obviously earning the spot against Cain Velasquez. Tell us, what do you think are some of the challenges that he brings to this fight? And obviously, how are you going to deal with his world-class ground game? Obviously, you've improved so much in that area. How are you going to deal with that one aspect of his game?
Well, everyone's a world-class ground fighter until they get a punch in the face. So that's how I'll deal with all these ground fighters like everyone else. I hit him in the head, and there goes your freaking black belt.
Now, Fabricio has always, of course, improved a lot with his striking as well. However, you are by far the more decorated striker. Do you feel that he poses any dangers in the striking department?
Well, I don't know. I know his game would be to push the pace to try and kind of get me tired, to try and shoot the takedown so I'm on the ground. You know, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, if he tries to stay in that bang, well, then good for me. If he doesn't, well, then, you know, he's got to work his game plan. So, yeah, I feel I've got an advantage on all angles. So, you know, it's nothing new to me.
Absolutely, Mark. And you mentioned training in Mexico, but how does it feel knowing that you will be a part of the first ever Mexico event? Are you excited, you know, to put on this big show, be the headliner at UFC 180? Is it something that you're excited about?
Well, I'm excited to get getting a shot at the world champion if I win this fight. That's all I'm excited about.
Absolutely. I think most of Australia and New Zealanders as well. Now, Mark, I wanted to chat a bit about your clothing line. Obviously, Juggernaut, it's your own clothing line. Kind of took us a little bit by surprise. Tell us about how it all came about.
Well, Juggernaut was my first fight in ever. In 83, my first fight ever. When I started fighting, they used to call me the Juggernaut. That was my name. I used to love the Marvel characters. And that was my first fight name. So, you know, I had a little poster back in 83, I think it was, when I was 16 or something, and it says, Mark the Juggernaut Hunt. That's why I've worked at it, you know, 4 different times. I've used 4 different groups of people, and, you know, all 4 times they've just been a bunch of crooks. But I finally met the right people with the help of Sky Television in New Zealand, and they were making huge amounts of ground, you know, with global sales are pretty good. It's pretty awesome to have a good partners in the Juggernaut industry. So, you know, www.jugnt.com is my clothing line, and I've always thought everyone else has got a fight clothing line. I don't see why not. I should have one because, you know, I'm one of the best fighters in this planet. So, Juggernaut clothing is, you know, Juggernaut by Mark Hunt is something that all the fans that can share a part of my success and myself. So, you know, get online and support the line. It's awesome. They're doing far better stuff globally than even in New Zealand. So
wow,
it's funny that.
Well, I'm sure all the fans in Australia and New Zealand will jump on and get a piece of Juggernaut clothing. You know, me and Cass have had a look, and there's some great options there. So everybody make sure you jump on the website. Now, Mark, before we let you go, we're going to do one final thing. It's called the Submission Radio Tap-Out Round. We'll throw a bunch of fun questions at you, and you just answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Okay, Mark?
All right, no worries.
Okay, here we go. Now, a part of fighting is visualizing the outcome of a fight. When you visualize yourself versus Werdum, what's the victory scenario that pops into your head the most?
Well, standing there with my hand up, taking that number one spot is the vision I see.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, you and I, we have a lot in common. We both love KFC. So tell us, what's the ultimate meal from KFC, and what do you choose?
Well, I like, right now I'd like to have a 3-piece feed.
Yeah.
And large fries, and that's about, and a chocolate thick shake to top it off. So. But right now, all I'm having is thin air and steak.
Steak's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Yeah, that's right. Stay away from the KFC in Mexico. I don't know if it can be trusted. Now, if you win at UFC 180, where will you put the title belt in the Hunt household?
Probably in the cupboard, or probably in this, I don't have a trophy room, and I'm not interested in, I never have anything like that before. My belt just sits around and everything else, so I'm not an egotistical person.
That's fair enough.
I just, I don't have a trophy room at all, so, it's the actual, winning the actual title is more important than the actual piece of steel.
Yeah, absolutely.
The belt itself. The belt can't even hold my pants up. So,
Now, Mark, you're an interesting guy, but you're a bit of a mystery. Finish this sentence. People don't know that I
am a crazy person.
We had our feelings, Mark.
Now, Mark, you're known as the hardest puncher in the sport, but what's the hardest you've ever been punched by, and who?
Probably by my wife.
Now, Mark, when you play EA UFC, who do you fight as and who do you beat up?
Well, I normally fight against my son, and I'm using myself, and we're beating up myself. So.
And who wins, you or your son?
It's normally him. He's not better at video games than I am. So.
Yeah.
And finally, Mark, you've already told us your scenario, but give us the official prediction. How are you beating Fabricio Werdum at UFC 180?
First round, walk away, knockout.
And everybody gets excited just hearing that, guys. You can obviously watch Mark Hunt fight for the interim title at UFC 180 on November 15th. And, of course, in Australia, it's going to be November 16th because we live in the future. Don't forget to follow Mark on Twitter at MarkHunt1974. And, of course, check out Mark's new apparel at Juggernaut. It is JUGNT.com. And, of course, it is also sold at Street Kings, streetkings.co.nz. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. And good luck in the fight.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. And tune in, folks, to Mexico City, 180, a couple of weeks' time. And I'll be singing a song like Craig Davis. I'm walking away. All right, guys. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for taking the time, Mark. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.
Take care, Mark. Bye-bye.